Welcome to the Keiser Report. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some important news for you. It has come to my attention that the Khorasan group is the SpaghettiOs of terror. I know that instills terror in your heart, but unfortunately for all of us, the U.S. military claims to have recently destroyed the previously unheard-of terror group and killed its still unknown leader. But as nobody knows the guy's name, let's just call him Chef Boyardee. So keep calm, people, and go shopping. For Chef Boyardee and SpaghettiOs will never threaten your way of life again. Stacy?
Max, well, before there was a war on terror, there was the war on drugs. So I'm going to show you the SpaghettiOs headline from the war on drugs. And it reads, drug charges have been dropped against a congresswoman after crime lab analysis confirmed her claim that a spoon she had in a vehicle leading to her arrest did not contain methamphetamine residue, but spaghetti sauce. So this woman, Ashley Gabrielle Huff, who's 23, she was a passenger in a car that got pulled over. She was apparently eating SpaghettiOs beforehand out of a can, and there was residue on it. Well, she was initially charged with possession of methamphetamine. She maintained the residue on a spoon was spaghetti sauce, not meth. It took 3 months of her in jail for her to get released, and for the crime lab to come back and say, oh, it's not meth, it was SpaghettiOs.
Right, SpaghettiOs, little round spaghetti in a can with tomato sauce, and this woman was eating the SpaghettiOs, and she got charged for methamphetamine possession.
Yes.
She wasn't smoking the SpaghettiOs.
No,
she was just eating SpaghettiOs out of a can.
Yes.
She wasn't like trying to shove them into her veins.
Well, this
or it wasn't a suppository of SpaghettiOs. She was just eating SpaghettiOs out of a can, as millions of people do every single day. So she was stopped and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to bust you for methamphetamine use. She spent 3 months in jail. They said, no, the spoon has tomato sauce on it. It's not methamphetamine.
Exactly. And by the way, it would have cost about $11,000 to keep her incarcerated for those 3 months.
That's a lot of SpaghettiOs. That's a year's worth of SpaghettiOs, maybe 2.
Probably 2 years.
You could buy a whole ward at the prison, SpaghettiOs, for that amount of money.
But she was at this because she spent so long in there because she couldn't make bail, she couldn't afford bail. Her lawyer said this, I think what the unfortunate part about her case is that she was probably willing to take the felony to close out her case so that she could get out of jail, even though she always maintained her innocence. So they were offering her a plea bargain is just plead guilty to the felony charge of methamphetamine possession and we'll let you out now. But she would have a felony charge, which means, of course, in America that you could never vote again, you could never participate in the democracy, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, well, this is part of the casino gulag model. America is becoming an enormous gulag, and here's a good case of it. So here's a woman who's just being busted for methamphetamine use for no reason, threatened, she wanted to do a plea bargain to give her this status as a felony, and eventually she'll end up in prison. But the prisons are profit centers. They're the cause of American productivity because prisoners only get 12 cents a day pay. So this is the gulag. The gulag at the casino is that maybe you won't go into prison. Maybe you'll win the lotto. Maybe you can play lotto in the prisons. That's the greatest thing about America now is they're going to merge Harrah's and Bally's and all these great Caesars, these casino operators. They're going to merge them with private prison operators like Corrections Corps of America. So we create a true industrial strength gulag prison casino economy. So people are being lining up, like they line up for iPhones, to get into prison and get SpaghettiOs served to them all day long, all the SpaghettiOs they can eat, and a chance to win at the casino.
So at the top of the show, you said the Khorasan group was like the SpaghettiOs of terror. The Khorasan group, anatomy of a fake terror threat to justify bombing Syria. You know that this Khorasan group, nobody ever heard of it until the AP published a report based on totally anonymous sources of very concerned government and military officials who are speaking totally off the record because this is top secret information. There's a group scarier than ISIS, scarier than Al-Qaeda, scarier than all these guys. You can't even imagine. We can't tell you what they're going to do, but we need to go bomb. And they began bombing. Now, Glenn Greenwald in this article points out to 2 tweets that summarizes this whole thing, both from Richard Engel, NBC News, which was pushing this war. First one, September 23rd, the day of the bombings began. Officials say Khorasan is a threat to U.S. because it aims to bring down airplanes with explosives. The explosives were clothes, by the way. They had flammable clothes, which All clothes, by the way, are flammable. If I set light to your clothes right now, you'll catch on fire. The second one was the following day from Richard Engel, and he said, Syrian activists telling us they've never heard of Khorasan or its leader. So it might have been as fictional as that methamphetamine, which was actually just SpaghettiOs sauce.
On the Khorasan or kerosene or Khorasan, or I mean, this was obvious. Remember going back last year, there was a vote in the UK Parliament whether or not to bomb Syria, to invade Syria, and they voted it down. So this threw the UK, US military complex into disarray because suddenly it looked like their income was going to be interrupted for some reason. So they made up a thing called kerosene or Khorasan, and they used it as justification to bomb Iraq, which we know is also a justification to bomb Syria. So this is how they get around the law-making process here in the UK. So David Cameron, he doesn't respect Parliament whatsoever. Parliament said no to David Cameron. So they invented a fake terrorist group to justify killing people in Syria. That's the Prime Minister who's here in the UK now. They make a boogeyman out of thin air. It's less substantive than the hologram of Julian Assange when he was recently interviewed as a hologram. This terrorist group is even less substantive. There's absolutely nothing there. But Cameron, after he lied to Scotland through his teeth and set them down the path to servitude, to the casino gulag model, he figures, you know what? I'm going to go in front of these people on BBC and say, there's a threat. It's called Kim Kerosene. And he's going to start killing Syrians. Well, of course, this is just going to set
Well,
motion.
they're already killing Syrians, and according to a headline from Reuters, it said U.S.-led raids hit grain silos in Syria, kill workers. So, when they wiped out Khorasan, it might have been a grain silo for all we know, just like the SpaghettiOs turns out into methamphetamine that gets you locked up for 3 months in a jail. And now when they were asked, James Comey, the FBI director, and Rear Admiral John Kirby, the Pentagon spokesperson, they each acknowledged that the U.S. did not have precise intelligence about where or when the cell known as the Khorasan Group would attempt to strike a Western target, which was, remember, the excuse that they used to invade and destroy Syria. Well, Kirby, briefing reporters at the Pentagon, said, I don't know that we can pin that down to a day or a month or a week or 6 months. We can have this debate about whether it was valid to hit them or not, or whether it was too soon or too late. We hit them. And I don't think we need to throw up a dossier here to prove that these are bad dudes. But it could have been the grain silo, and just like this woman who was pulled over and thrown into jail, that's the same sort of excuse they use on Fox News and other media in America. Well, they'll say, well, this woman's in jail, she must be guilty because she's in jail, so she shouldn't have been carrying around SpaghettiOs that looked like crystal meth.
Well, how is that not a war crime? Seriously. How is that David Cameron commits murder with no justification whatsoever? How is that not a war crime? There's no basis for it. I mean, I understand it. The economy here in the UK is based on David Cameron being a war criminal. But what I don't understand is that when there's blowback, when these guys get beheaded, when there's violence in the street, I don't understand how Cameron can go in front of the House of Commons and go, oh, boo-hoo, one of our people got beheaded. Because you caused it, you frickin' war criminal. So just man up, cowboy up. If you're going to go commit war crimes and murder people without any justification, there's going to be blowback, you frickin' pie-eating, ham-faced.
Well, the people love it because they get jobs. And here's the headline, another one from The Intercept, and it reads, defense contractors are making a killing. Stock prices for Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman set all-time record highs last week as it became increasingly clear that President Obama was committed to a massive sustained air war in Iraq and Syria. So defense stocks are up 19% this year, and versus 2.2% for the S&P 500. So this provides jobs. This provides rising stock markets. It's good. People will say, well, we're willing to sacrifice a few people for these jobs.
But that's what I said. In other words, when they voted no to invade Syria before, those stocks traded down. And so that can't possibly let that go by. So they made up a group, Khorasan, and then to make the stocks go higher. So it's believe me, if David Cameron had an opportunity to take Auschwitz concentration camp public on the FTSE, he would be the first in line buying stock in that tragedy. That's the mentality of this prime minister.
But it's also the U.S., it's France, it's Germany, it's Italy, it's Spain, it's Portugal, it's Sweden, it's Finland, it's Norway. it's this is the Western model because you need to keep stock prices rising, and these are the elites that control the government, and whoever controls the government, like bankers, like the military-industrial complex, like the prison-industrial complex, gets laws passed, whatever, so that you could lock up somebody for 3 months for having a SpaghettiOs on their spoon. In The Intercept, they say that it's the munition makers who stand to reap the biggest windfall, especially in the short term, says Fortune magazine, citing Raytheon's long-range Tomahawk missiles and Lockheed Martin's Hellfires, among others. Quote, small diameter bombs could be a huge winner since aircraft can carry more of them in a single sortie, one analyst tells the magazine. So U.S. forces, for example, used 47 Tomahawk missiles on just one Monday alone, and that was at $1.5 million apiece. Now, the small diameter bombs, those cost $250,000 apiece. So this is a sort of revenue these companies could expect. They drop it, and it's creative destruction. It's the perfect sort of disaster capitalism.
Right, and also Cameron came out and said recently that any dissent, anyone who questions his autonomy in committing war crimes, he now equates that to terrorism. Any comment, any questioning his authority as an autonomous, warmongering, war crime committing, defense contractor friendly fascist, that's immediately qualifies as a terror talk.
Right now, the war is costing $2.7 billion on an annualized basis, but Obama now has $85 billion in their overseas contingency budget, which is $26 billion more than he asked for. But now, FBI Director Comey, when he was asked, he said he didn't even know what the term imminent means. When they said, you said the strikes were imminent. So a quick, brief headline for the last thing. He says, FBI blasts Apple, Google phone encryption. It allows people to be beyond the law. So the FBI Director, James Comey, blasted Apple and Google because they claim that they're coming out with a phone that has encryption that even with a warrant wouldn't be able to be unencrypted. And he said he could not understand why companies would market something expressly to allow people to place themselves beyond the law, which, first of all, he's beyond the law when he's encouraging a war on a grain silo or a spoonful of SpaghettiOs. Who knows what it was that we bombed? But he doesn't even know what the word imminent means. So how does he even know what the word encryption or law means?
Look, I mean, these exact laws were what the British passed shortly before America declared their Declaration of Independence. The ability to just examine everything willy-nilly without any court order whatsoever. And America, thank God, went to war with the monarchy and jettisoned these Marmite swilling eaten toffs, But, so just... Anyway, we got to go. It's so disgusting.
That was called the writ of assistance, by the way, and it's time to rise up again.
All right, you heard it here first. Well, stay tuned for the second half. A whole lot more. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to one of the original Bitcoiners, Amir Taki of Dark Wallet. Amir, welcome back to the Keiser.
Up?
Yeah, you were one of our guests talking about Bitcoin years ago. Yeah. So you're really one of the pioneers, and I think now probably world recognized. I think everywhere you go, people
don't big me up so much.
No, well, you're modest, Amir. Let's talk about Dark Wallet for a second, because this is a new project that you've been involved with Cody Wilson of the printable gun fame. Where is the project currently? It's gotten a lot of attention, obviously. There was a BBC interview with you recently talking about this. It's got a lot of people nervous. It's got a lot of people excited. What's going on?
The thing to realize about Bitcoin is many people, when they come to Bitcoin and they see Bitcoin, they're very much stuck in that framework of how the things are. And Bitcoin is really not an improved payments mechanism. The fees are not cheaper than credit cards. The transactions are slow. There's no consumer protection. Really, what Bitcoin offers is something deeper than just merely a way to transfer money around. Bitcoin is global. Bitcoin is anonymous. Bitcoin, well, it can be anonymous. It's uncensored. It's decentralized.
Okay, so let me jump in. So in other words, the focus so far has been on Bitcoin as means of merchant processing and as a currency. So what I'm hearing here is that those are overstating the case. There is a deeper significance to Bitcoin.
We have a deeper vision of what Bitcoin is really about.
Okay, and the Dark Wallet gets into that deeper vision, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it specifically? It sounds like a place I can store my coins anonymously. That's my first glance at it. Tell us about the actual, what is Dark Wallet?
Well, for now, it's just a simple premise. We're building the foundation that we can later go and innovate on top, and next year create a lot more crazy things. But at the moment, it's just about a wallet where you have your privacy, you can maintain the integrity of your transactions. And anonymity is really important for free speech, because it's like, oh, you can do whatever you want, just tell me your name and your address. And we're looking at Bitcoin with a longer term, for long-term gain rather than short-term profit, about what you can do and the things that we need to live. And there are a lot of people in the Bitcoin space who are like looking at Bitcoin from this techno-utopic vision about like, oh, the humans like managed by technology. But I spend a lot of time like with all these different movements and different things that people are trying to construct to be able to live, like the different cooperatives around Europe and different projects. And I see real problems, and my mindset is one of looking for what are the problems, what are the tools that we have to solve those problems, what are the solutions we can create to solve real use cases. And so that is what I'm thinking about, like the tools that we can equip people with to be able to live.
Let me jump in, because recently a comment from FBI. The FBI was saying that they're really upset because the new Apple phone offers a level of encryption that they didn't offer before, and the FBI, presumably, a lot of people are questioning whether this is true or not, but they're saying, the FBI is saying, we can't hack into these people's phone and know exactly what they're doing. At the same time, you're presenting Dark Wallet, which is offering a wallet, offers some anonymity, and you were the subject of a hit piece by the BBC's Click show, where they basically slandered you and smeared you. And remember, BBC is the same organization that Paul Mason, one of their retiring journalists, called an outright propagandist. So, would you see these things two connected? And are we on the cusp of a political awakening that you're kind of birthing into existence, technologically speaking, if I may say that? It's a long-winded question, but your thoughts?
I'm very disappointed in the BBC because they toned down my rhetoric a lot. And the thing to understand about ISIS is there's a Guardian article which is going, the concept of ISIS is a profoundly contemporary one. ISIS is not a state as such. ISIS is an ideological movement. And now with the way that if you look in the last decade, there's been, there's been political turmoil and protests in like Kyrgyzstan, Georgia, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, in Italy, in Spain, in Greece, in London with Occupy and Occupy in the United States, the Tea Party, the protests in Chile, in Brazil. The whole world is going nuts, and we're seeing the emergence of these new parallel power structures. In no small part because of the internet, but also about the confluence of different environmental factors and the political climate. The whole Ponzi scheme is collapsing of the economy, the stuff with the ecology, like where really a lot of our food sources or our health even is under threat. And the rise of fascism in the States. There's been this kind of illusion since the end of the Second World War, of the great grand society and a big institution, and that somehow the people inside of that who are neutral, and we have the awards, we have the qualifications, and we are the neutral arbiters on behalf of the big society, and that each person votes through that, and that somehow these big democratic institutions manifest the will of the people. And
let me jump in. So let me rephrase the question, and I'll ask it in this way: Can you fight a hierarchy, or can you fight a network, a distributed network with a hierarchy? And the reason I ask this is because the Al-Qaeda, the terrorists that were popular a few years ago, it means, I believe, it translated roughly into the network. And it was a very loosely based network, but they had one central figure that eventually, was taken down. Then you have this ISIS group, which is more fragmented. It's over 2 different states. There's a very small group, but they have wielded a lot of power. Then they just created a new one. The name even escapes me, the Marmites or something, Marmite swilling types, and it's even more diffuse. But these networks that are spread out and decentralized, there's an attempt to go after them using hierarchical powers, top-down powers, bombing from the air. Doesn't it make sense, Amir Taki, that if the enemy or if the groups you're fighting against is a network, then the only way you can meet that force is with some kind of network. So it doesn't dark wallet in its distribution of payment system. Isn't that kind of what government should be praising that and seeing that as a possible solution instead of condemning it?
The thing to understand is the fascists, whoever they are, they always have the resources, but we have imagination and creativity. And we are making the tools with imagination of what's possible. And Bitcoin is a really interesting case study for if you want to see how this mindset emerges. You know, when people start to say, okay, we are going to go into the system. You know, there's this honey badger meme that Bitcoin is impervious to change, that Bitcoin is like a thing that will just go into the system. And in fact, without recognizing actually that technology is very much a social phenomena. And it's not like one person, one vote. It's different power groups with different amounts of power. And when we talk about Bitcoin, we cannot divorce the socio-political rhetoric from the technology. There's a lot of people who make the argument that goes something like this: Bitcoin is neutral. Everybody can participate in it. Therefore, Bitcoin is politically neutral, which is you cannot say any technology is politically neutral. The thing that separates man from the animals is that man, rather than being content to be a figure moving through the landscape, is a shaper of the landscape. It's our tool use that it propelled us to where we are today. And technology, we have to recognize that technology is the tool that we use to live and that we can use to construct the world as we want through creating or empowering the values that we want to see happen. And there is a lot of people now in Bitcoin who are trying to divorce Bitcoin from its political narrative. You know, there was an article recently which was called "The Man Who Really Built Bitcoin," talking about how Gavin Andresen is the real pioneer of Bitcoin and downplaying Satoshi Nakamoto. And it's like, it's playing the whole line of, you know, we are the dispassionate engineers who are developing Bitcoin according to established process. You know, not that Bitcoin is made by creative artists or individuals, that it's made according to this like big superstructures. And businessmen obviously love that. You know, like there was Bitcoin Nordic recently is saying about how, oh, we got investment from the government, you know, and they're saying that because it's like, okay, we want to get in with the government because then the government's going to give us more better favors to allow us to operate in this market.
Okay, let me cut it.
A lot of people seeing themselves as being like some libertarian ninjas that's going into the system and we're going to destroy it from within, without realizing they are party to that process of assimilation for how Bitcoin, for giving the foot in the door for the different forces that co-opt Bitcoin. It is not about this or that big decision for how Bitcoin gets co-opted. It's actually about the day-to-day decisions, the everyday decisions where you're not sure between this or that one. It's a different shade of grey. And once you go down that path, it becomes easier to go down there again and again and again until some point in the future, you look back and you see, okay, we have a gov coin or we have a corp coin. And people always talk about Bitcoin in terms of the final victory when the dam bursts and the water flows. But that is completely false. There is no final victory, you know. People always used to talk about the year of the Linux desktop, which never happened, you know. And Esperantists always talk about the fina venko, the final victory. The thing is we may win individual battles, but it's very much about the process or the struggle, you know. And it is the nature of human beings that we lie and we cheat and deceive. But also human beings who do not lie and cheat and deceive will find each other. And because they are not lying and cheating, deceiving each other, when they work together, they're more efficient. And it's very much this finding the process that's what's really important, and being part of the continual striving towards making the things with more human values, about getting back to what it really means to human spirit, because we need to recognize that humans are not neutral. We are not robots. And I trust in that guy because he inspired me, because I like his values, you know. And if we want to make the things serve for ourselves, we need to make the things between ourselves mutually, one to the other, you know, because if we're always going to have to be trusting in that guy in these temples of power, then they're always going to treat their circle better first, and then the guys around them, and then you're on the outside of that.
Okay. Well, let me. So
Bitcoin-
just to finish, my point is that for the BBC or for the government to say dark wallet's anonymous and bad guys can use an anonymous wallet, therefore it's bad, misses the entire point that you've just very brilliantly articulated, that there's a whole world of opportunities there that people can dig into, and it can be transformative in a way that this government and others simply are ignoring because they're wed to the old methodology. We only have about 30 seconds left. Now, when you started doing your Bitcoin conferences years ago, I was privileged to be at one of the early conferences of Amir Taki.
Oh, thank you.
And but since that time, it's taken on a more corporate tone. The conferences these days are full of investment bankers and guys from Silicon Valley. Is Bitcoin going to survive this wave of beige and khaki pants?
You know, there's always some process of assimilation to some degree. It's just like to what degree that happens, you know, and how much do we preserve the integrity of the principles of Satoshi Nakamoto. And we have to also be unyielding in our striving towards our vision or with our imagination.
We'll cut her off there. Thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report again. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
All right, well, that's it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Amir Taki of Dark Wallet. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.